It wasn't pretty, but a win is a win is a win. NC State gets a 24-14 victory in East Hartford on Thursday night. We're going to give you our initial reactions.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Wolfpack Nation, welcome back to another episode of Locked On Wolfpack, free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Friday, happy Victory Friday. NC State Wolfpack is 1-0 after a close-fought, maybe not so much disappointing, but a lot to work on victory Thursday night up at UConn. Kenton, give me your immediate just gut reactions, and I'll go after you.
So, my immediate gut reactions are this game was closer than it needed to be on a lot of fronts. And I hate to say this, but as different as we hoped things were, some of the problems of the past had kind of persisted. Some of the things that we saw in terms of our short yardage offense being very unimaginative and ultimately stifled was something that we saw multiple times. And so, you never want to see that situation occur again. But, you saw that. And another thing that I immediately thought was, most of the problems that we saw defensively, easily fixable. The thing that I think is the hardest to fix on defense is blown coverages and missed tackles. And we didn't have either one of those to a very high degree, at least. The things that I was seeing was folks being out of their gaps and folks not separating from blocks. You can coach both of those things up in a snap, in a heartbeat, and emphasize those things and have that done in a heartbeat. So, those are my initial reactions. And every win is like a baby, right? It doesn't matter if it's the prettiest thing in the world. It's your baby, so you're gonna love it. That's what this game was. It ain't the prettiest thing in the world, but it's my baby. It's the Pack's baby. The Pack better love it.
Yeah, so we'll probably go more in depth. Watching some game tape, looking over some more things on Monday. Just Friday. It's late here. We're recording this. We're just giving you our off-the-cuff gut reactions, the first thing that jumped off the page to it. So for me, I do want to start with the defense. I think there was maybe an initial scare where UConn got the ball and just immediately knifed it through the defense and scored on the opening possession. After that first possession for UConn, I thought the defense got better and better and better as the night went on, maybe with the exception of late there before Peyton Wilson picked off a pass. The D-line was a little bit looser than I was expecting. Of course, Savion Jackson did not play. Still have not heard the reason for that. I'm sure that will come out at a later time. But I was expecting more from the D-line. Of course, they did tighten up as the game went on. Linebacking core, of course, Peyton Wilson, no surprise there, led the charge. I believe he had 10 tackles, led the team in tackles, and of course had the exclamation point there with the interception at the end. But, Jalen Scott and Devon Betty would have liked to see a little bit more. I thought they played pretty well. Couple big tackles from Jalen Scott in there. Can't, underemphasize that. But secondary, I thought we probably hit the jugs machine over the weekend and throughout the next week. I think we dropped probably 3 or 4 interceptions. I know Sean Brown had a couple gimmies. Aiden White almost had one. What was it? The first possession, they just threw a jump ball. Almost came down with that one. That would have been nice to have. All in all, I thought the defense was okay. I'd probably give them like a B-. Room for improvement, like you mentioned, Kenton. Shedding blocks was a bit of an issue all night. Of course, that long touchdown run they gave up to Victor Rosa. Up until that point, I was very pleased with the run defense. It was just that one little break there. But defense was okay. I think for the both of us, our gut reactions are probably going to center around the offense. But Kenton, I'll let you kick off there.
Yeah. In terms of the offense, I tweeted this out during the game, and I meant this with my entire heart and soul. We could get out of East Hartford with the Brennan Armstrong backpack offense.
Yeah.
That, hey, doesn't matter. Our guy's better than yours, and he'll figure it out. Offense works for this game. It will not next week.
Yeah.
It will get you hurt next week. It will not work against Clemson. It will get you hurt that week. It will not against the Louisville. Say what you want about Louisville. That defense is still that defense.
Right.
It will get you hurt against them. And so I haven't watched the tape yet, so I don't want to put this on. I don't want to put this on anybody yet. However, when a quarterback is running for his life, doing all the scrambling, and that's a main source of your offense, it is always a symptom of one of four things, guaranteed. And then normally it's a combination of multiple, but it's always a combination of, if not one of these four things. Lack of imaginative play calling, meaning that the play designs as they're drawn up, folks aren't finding holes in zones. Folks aren't beating man or folks are not drawing up route concepts that are going to beat man and mess with people's discipline and whatnot and all that good stuff. Or your receivers just aren't getting separation. Your Larrys and Joes are not beating their Larrys and Joes. You're calling the go ball. They're running cover one, and your guys just can't get open. They just can't stack their defender. Or the offensive line is not holding up, which is obvious and an obvious reason that, your quarterback would be on the run all night. And last but not least, your quarterback is not making appropriate reads or just doing too much unnecessarily. I've seen many a time where the offense is perfect. Things go, everybody does their job as it's drawn up, but the quarterback just decides for whatever reason, I don't trust him to catch the ball. I don't trust my arm right now. I got happy feet. I've been sacked a couple times, and all of a sudden they're taking off when they don't need to. I'm going to tell you this. That offense is not sustainable. Your quarterback having 20 carries a game is not sustainable. I said in the tweet, unless your plan is to see MJ Morris, knock it off, and I still stand by that. No quarterback should be your main source of running the football. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there are not exceptions to this rule, like a Lamar Jackson at Louisville or whatever the case may be. Brennan Armstrong ain't that. He ain't that. So he should not be running the ball as much as he was. But that's my gut reaction to the offense.
Yeah, Kenton and I were tweeting back and forth. So if you're reading all these tweets coming out at a high rate of speed, it's because we're literally both tweeting at basically the same time. But
yeah,
Kenton beat me to the punch on the tweet that said basically we're relying way too heavily on a Brennan Armstrong improv act here. And point blank period, Brennan Armstrong carried us tonight. And by carried, I mean literally, because he had 19 of them for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. If he was not as mobile as he is, we might have lost that game because we just couldn't get any semblance of a consistent pass game. You mentioned the O-line. I think they struggled a bit there. I think there's some room for improvement. I expect improvement there. I trust that we'll, get back in the lab, look at some tape, make some adjustments, especially because we're going to need to going into Notre Dame in game 2. But I thought Brennan was running for his life a lot of the evening. And, some of it was to avoid a sack. Silver lining here, if I'm going to give some tough love, I want to point out some things that went well. I believe we were only sacked one time.
Yeah.
So, you're pleased with that. Penalties, excellent. I think we only had, one total penalty all night? Excellent.
Yeah.
Mental mistakes and that facet was excellent. But I think for unfortunately too much of the evening, I think the O-line was a little bit of like too quick of an airport security. UConn was just breezing through way too quickly, way too often. And that's why you saw a play break down as often as it did. And so we'll get into some of these comments that we got from some tweeters with us that kind of covered more of the point here. But
absolutely,
it's so hard to develop anything vertically down the field when it's like snap, count to 2, and immediately run for your life. It's just, you can't get anything consistently going down the field in that way. And I think that's why maybe some of the frustrations with maybe some play calling, some short passes, it wasn't the offense didn't pop the way have been told that it was going to pop. And I think that's probably some of the reason why. But we're going to continue this discussion in just 1 minute after a quick word from our sponsors today. That is Gametime. Of course, college football season is here, and tickets are literally coming at a premium. If you need help getting last-minute tickets for the best seats in the house, you need to check out Gametime. The last-minute deals are unbeatable. Take it from me, I use them all the time. I'm going to use Gametime several times over the course of this season to attend some NC State football games. They're flash deals, the last-minute tickets, super easy to find, super easy to navigate the app, all coming at the lowest price guarantee. They have event cancellation protection, job loss protection, you name it, they got it. So forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, etc. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly where you'll be sitting. But what you need to do is download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off today. All right, so continuing a little bit more of this discussion, before we get into some of these tweets, Kenton, we kind of had a short discussion before we decided to save it for on air here. But we kind of discussed if we thought that Robert and I was holding back some horses in the stable, maybe not opening up the playbook as much as we could have. And I think there's kind of two sides of the story here. Of course, Kenton, you're a former football player for NC State, so you're going to know better than I will. But I've always kind of subscribed that it's not so much that the offensive coordinator is not looking at all the pages, but more so scheming directly for a team. So, for example, you're going to game plan differently offensively against UConn than you are for Notre Dame. And that's maybe why the lack of offensive plays or the explosive plays may have been there. But I think that, yeah, we probably were holding back a little bit. And there's also the conversation where you have to take what you're given and also improvise where necessary. But that's kind of my 2 cents. I think that, no, we didn't use the whole playbook. I don't think we needed to use the whole playbook, but I think a lot more execution, it would have been a whole lot more cleaner than what you saw.
You know, I look at Keon Lassane's power read play, went for an 8-yard run, and that's all I needed to see to know we're not quite digging in our bag fully. Right. Because we ran that once to immense success. How many times do we run it for the rest of the game, Grayson? You watched every game, and I watched every play of the game, and so did I. How many more times did you see? 0.
0 more times.
0. Okay. So a play that got you 8 yards, you don't go back to. And I've watched Robert and I, and I've studied Robert and I. He is a repeat play caller based on success. If he has success with a play, Robert and I is more than happy to go back to that play or a counter off of that play that's going to work out in that way. We didn't do that either. So it's telling me that this wasn't a full, hey, put on the show, do whatever you got to do. It was more so we can get out of here running only inside zone, a little bit of power here and there, keep our route concepts basic. But if I'm wrong, boy, do we have some conversations to have, because again, the offense just looked very uninspired and unimaginative. And that's a truly unfortunate thing. And that looking unimaginative could happen because of, like we've already talked about, the O-line's performance could have been a reason for it. It could have been because, we've already talked about potentially looking ahead to Notre Dame. It could have been because there were only certain plays that were game planned in this week. There's a lot of different things that could be the cause of it, but I don't think that we got in our deepest play calling bag and bought out all the stops necessarily this game.
And not to downplay some of the struggles that we had as well, but, in the same breath, I also wasn't really expecting us to put up 50 points tonight. I expected a little bit of a learning curve. Of course, They've been at this a month. You've been hearing that the defense is ahead of the offense. And while some of us thought, well, it's probably because their defense is really good, I think you saw maybe why those comments are coming out now. The offense still has some room to grow, some room to gel. So, I mean, was I expecting a super explosive offense tonight? No, but I was expecting more than we got, to say the very least. I think my prediction was like 28 points. We finished with 24. How we got to 24 is not exactly how I saw that going. I was hoping for a lot more action through the air, but I guess you take what you can get. But go ahead.
Before we move on from this,
yeah,
let me give you an example of what I look at and say, all right, there was something going on here, that there's something amiss here. More rushing yards than passing yards ain't a big deal. Whatever. I can deal with that. Did you know that our longest pass was 19 yards and our longest rush was 18 yards? Do you know what our longest pass was?
Was it to KC?
No, it was the screen to Michael Allen.
Oh, that's ironic. There's a whole nother discussion we got with Michael Allen too. We'll get into that in just a bit, but that's interesting.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm not talking about, hey, we need to be throwing 40-yard bombs every play. What I am talking about is the fact that it's not a sustainable offense.
No.
To have your biggest plays coming from, I remember that screen was a big play, and then it was a fake screen it was a fake running back screen that turned into a tunnel screen on the other side that hit for about, I want to say 9 or 10 yards. That was a bigger pass play. That shouldn't be memorable in my mind in a game. It shouldn't be. I'm not saying that you need to be chucking it 40 yards every play again, but you need to hit some chunk plays. You need to hit a few plays where it's like, oh man, we ate up some yardage quickly, because you're not going to beat a lot of teams on our schedule with your longest passing play of the game being a 19-yard screen. It's just not going to happen.
Absolutely. So getting into some of these comments, actually, I want to start with one from ourselves here. Scary moment tonight with Raheem Ashford, safety. Got blasted on. That was a very good kickoff return from Julian Gray. Made it out past, I think, either the 45 or the 50. Great field position. Yeah. Added on with the penalty, the late hit, but it came at a cost because it was a very scary moment. There was, quite a bit of time where Raheem Ashford was not visibly moving. They brought out the stretcher almost immediately. Absolutely hate to see things like this. And even more so when it's somebody wearing the red and white, but thankfully it sounds like he's in stable condition. We've been hearing he is breathing, of course, he's moving. You saw the thumbs up on air. Those are good signs. Of course, we're going to continue to monitor Ashford's health. I'm sure he'll hear more about this on Friday and throughout the weekend, but certainly thankful that he is okay to a certain extent. And it's tough to see things like this.
Yeah, 1,000% agree. And this isn't a normal football injury. This happened on a late hit.
Yeah.
It's, we saw it last year with Devin Leary getting taken out on a hit that was deemed illegal. The same thing actually the year before with Devin Leary. I want to say, was it against Duke?
2020 when he broke his ankle.
2020, broke his ankle on the leg. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's really terrible. And 15 yards doesn't make up for the thought of, is my teammate alive? Is he okay? It's just awful. And, it's not within the bounds of play, which is the worst part about the whole thing. I can live with, hey, this young man is down. He made a football play and things just happen. And the game is a violent game. You live with that, sure. But to see things like that happen, just a complete Bush League move, it was terrible. It was terrible.
It was brutal. And, crossing our fingers for no more of these situations this year for anyone, and especially not anyone in a Wolfpack uniform. Hate to see stuff like that. So
absolutely.
Now getting into more of the discussion here, kind of on a lighter note, I guess you could say. This response came from Quaylen3. To give you some context here, I believe this came off of one of Kenton's tweets saying that the offense with just improv from Armstrong is not sustainable. I commented back, the effort on the ground tonight cannot be understated, but yes, we can't allow this to continue. Quaylen's response here says, not at all. I know we are taking what the defense is giving us, but why are we not airing it down the field? Armstrong won't last to Clemson like this. And so, yes, this was kind of highlighting what we were discussing here just minutes ago. When Armstrong is immediately getting bull rush, it's snap and then look around, run for your life. There's just no time for a play to develop. He doesn't have the opportunity to look downfield because he has to avoid a sack almost immediately. Now, I thought Brennan did an excellent job of avoiding the rush. He made a lot out of virtually nothing. And that's where you see a lot of his carries in the stat sheet tonight. Avoided the sack, was able to pick up a lot of positive yardage, but we got to tighten that up. In addition to Brennan carrying as often as he did, we have to tighten up the protection, just all of the above. We will not make it against Notre Dame, the Clemsons. Kenton, you mentioned Louisville. We'll get blown up by those teams with that kind of effort that we saw tonight.
Like I said, if the goal is to see MJ Morris, if the plan all along has been, hey, we brought Brennan in as a just in case, but, we wanted the backup all along, well, you'll get it. You'll get it. You'll get your hope. You cannot, even if you are running your quarterback, it should be a controlled amount. It should be a specific amount that you allot out. Like, hey, he's going to scramble 4 to 5 times a game. Sure. We factor that in. We build that in and count that. And then we'll draw up 5 or 6 more runs for him. Sure. Few options, few design runs. Sure. 19 carries is insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. We are not Navy. We are not one of the service academies. We are not Georgia Tech with Paul Johnson. Your quarterback should not be carrying the ball that much.
Yeah, I don't need Brennan Armstrong to be Taysom Hill. I need Brennan Armstrong to be Brennan Armstrong.
Absolutely.
And in 2021, Brennan Armstrong at that. So that was probably one of our bigger gripes of the evening. This next comment, and Kenton, I let you take care of this because you're more of a tactician than I am, but you tweeted, Kenton, why not go RPO with the ball in the hands of your leading passer and rusher on 4th and 1? That was when we got stuffed. Was it Mims that carried and got stuffed?
Yeah, it was double Mims.
This comment comes from Kelly Pete Fitzgerald. They say, need O-line expert here on 4th and 1. Do you really run pulling action, either spread, run or full bore push? Good grief. Yes. And Kenton, your response is?
Running an action with a pulling guard is a little risky. I wouldn't advise it. And especially with the flow of the game and what we were looking at. I specifically alluded to an RPO with the ball in the hands of your leading rusher and passer for a reason. Like I said, Brendan is not Lamar Jackson, but if we're going 4th and 1 and we got to have it, in this situation, I want something that has you rolling. I want something that has you, maybe that little triple option deal where you're running the shovel option, you're running the speed option, and the quarterback can obviously keep it. I want something along those lines because if I do not feel good about us getting pushed up the middle, then why would I, say, hey, the solution here is to trap. It's not to avoid the area where we have not found success. It's to trap the area. Come on now. Let's knock it off. All of our best runs on the night came to the perimeter. You know where RPOs put the ball generally? On the perimeter.
Right.
Like that's, it didn't make a ton of sense to me. But Kelly P. Fitzgerald, you're absolutely correct. And like I responded to that tweet on Twitter saying, it's similar to how a defense should not be running a twist on 4th and 1, right? A slant is one thing, right? A pinch, everybody's coming inside is one thing. You shouldn't be running any type of twist on that down. You probably shouldn't be running any type of trapping or gap scheme in that type of situation, especially if you are on a team that is your bread and butter. If you're talking North Dakota State, they love that double A gap ISO. Hey, more power to you. Run it. Do your thing. And even then, that's not a pulling guard place. I don't know why I mentioned it. But there are other teams that do the gap schemes are their deal. That's what they love. They're going to run power at you. They're going to run counter at you. They're going to line up and get real physical and heavy with you. Sure, for those teams, we're not that team. As we saw from the results of the play, you're not that guy, pal. Trust me, you're not that guy.
I want to continue a couple more thoughts after a quick break, but first, college football season is here, and this season, Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On College Football Live each Friday. Today, Locked On will go live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. College Football Live will cover playoff implications, the conference rivalry games, and go in-depth like only Locked On can. Now, of course, this will include our very own Kenton Gibbs. Kenton will be on, so be sure to check him out today between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. But you can find Locked On College Football Live every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on any Locked On College YouTube channel. You won't want to miss it. Now, so landing this plane before we get out of here on this Friday, I now want to have a bit of a discussion about the running back situation with Michael Allen specifically. Michael Allen is RB1. He should be RB1. He only got, 4 carries?
Yep, 4 carries.
And what he did with those 4 carries, 30 yards?
Yes, sir.
You saw the most burst. I think he has the best vision. The speed is there. The instincts are there. With all due respect, I'm not certain why Jordan Houston is still being kind of touted as the bell cow here. Michael Allen makes the utmost sense here to get the majority of the carries.
All right, so let's break down the totals here, okay? Jordan Houston had 14 touches for 56 yards. That is good for exactly 4 yards per touch. Delbert Mims had 8 touches for 20 yards. That is good for 2.5 yards per touch. So far, we've got 2.5 and 4, okay? Michael Allen had a total of 7 touches for 67 yards.
That's both rushing and receiving.
Yeah, rushing and receiving. 7 touches for 67 yards.
Yeah. Need we say more?
I don't know what else you want me to do with that information.
Yeah.
If you combined the yards per touch of Mims and Houston, and this is not to disrespect those young men and say if there's anything bad about them. The Lord knows how much of a Jordan Houston advocate I've been on this podcast, how much I have defended Jordan Houston. Every single place people say, oh, he's not a good football player. No, he's a good football player. He's a good football player. Good doesn't win you championships. Good doesn't win you championships, and that's the reality. And again, that's not a knock. That's not a knock. If you were to tell me, hey, what percent of teams do you think Jordan Houston could start on in the Power 5 today? I'd say about 50. I'd say half. He'd be the starter for sure.
Yeah. I'm subscribing to the idea here that if you flip-flop the usage between Houston and Allen tonight, I think we have at least 31 points. At least.
I'm a big believer. Anybody who knows me knows in my professional life and on my in my sports life, I have a saying that I stick to. Women lie, men lie. Numbers never lie.
Neither does ball.
You can, you can skew the numbers, you can pick certain numbers, you can manipulate the data, but sometimes you just got to look at the data and see. Again, with Michael Allen, four carries for 30 yards, 7.5 there. 3 receptions for 27 yards, 9 yards per touch there. So you're looking at a total of, again, 7 carries or 7 touches for 57 yards. I apologize. Not 67, 57. 7 for 57 is still the
point. The point remains.
The point still remains, and the fact still remains that even if you combine Delbert Mims 2.2 or so, or 2 point whatever it was, 2.4 on top of Jordan Houston's 4, you get 6.4. Now y'all do the math there, okay? Y'all do the math. Divide 57 by 7. You get more than 6.4. That's the reality.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know what else to say at this point. You get a slightly over 8, but I don't know what else to say at this point. That's your running back one. Okay, I understand. I don't care who's a great locker room guy. I don't care who's been there for forever. I don't care. Sometimes you give it to the guy that can scoop. That's your guy. That's your bell cow. That's the guy that relieves pressure off your quarterback so that he's not running around like a chicken with his head cut off 24/7.
Absolutely. So, well, that's going to do it for us here on Friday. Just our initial gut post-game reactions. We're going to go much more in-depth on Monday, more of a recap, a full recap, I guess you could say, on Monday. We say all this to say we're 1-0. We're happy with a win. A lot of college football fans, their favorite team is going to start 0-1 this weekend. Yours will not. We're 1-0. We're going into week 2. What more could you ask than just a win? We have a lot to work on. It will be worked on, I expect. We even have a little bit extra time to work on it, I think is maybe a silver lining here. A couple extra days to get ready for Notre Dame. But before we start talking about Notre Dame, of course, we'll do a full recap of the UConn game on Monday. Until then, as always, hit that like button. Drop your comments in here. A lot of these comments we'll read and respond to and probably be featured in through next week. So be sure to drop your thoughts in there. And as always, mash that subscribe button on our continued climb to 600 subscribers and beyond. So until then, thank you all for tuning in with us. Go Pack.
Go Pack.